We're now on Dcad lesson 18A, project evaluation. So what we're going to do is deal with a addition, remodel / project that we've previously done, the garage that we recently did. And we're going to start from the beginning. What we're going to assume is that the owners of this garage have decided to put an accessory residential unit on top of it. And so there's an evaluation process that we want to go through to make sure that this is even feasible before we get too far into it. So what I'm going to do first is I've already started sort of an outline of what needs to take place to evaluate a project initially, and this is something we'll get into, and I will be adding to it as time goes on. But essentially what we want to do as early as possible is to find out whether or not this project is even feasible. Typically when I first make contacts with clients, when they usually a phone call, the first thing I ask them is what's their timeline, what's their schedule, because we want to know if we can meet their expectations and needs initially, and if not, then it lets them off the hook early. Then they can look elsewhere. But if so, then we want to try to schedule a preliminary meeting, a no cost, no obligation preliminary meeting. Usually I try to schedule those within a couple of weeks of initial contact, even though my schedule may be totally clogged and I may not be able to start their project for months. I want to either allow them to look elsewhere or to actually obtain that project. So the bottom line is, it's a good idea to meet with them on a preliminary level initially as soon as possible, usually within a couple of weeks of the first contact. Now, even though we did the design for the previous garage that the accessory residential unit will potentially be built above, we're going to pretend that it was not our project, and so what we're going to do is go through a process of evaluation, and we'll be obtaining information as we move along. And basically what we want to do is look for the red lights as early on as possible. If there's something that says that we cannot do this for one reason or another, it may have to do with the client's budget, it may have to do with the characteristics of the site. We may not be able to accommodate an accessory residential unit, or it could even be issues with planning or the building codes. We may not be able to structurally accommodate an addition above that garage. So these are all things, and actually there's a bunch of them that we want to evaluate along the way. We want to sort of prioritize those. So what we're going to do is initially assume that this project, that we've already had a preliminary meeting with these folks, and that the project is actually going forward. So the first thing I'm going to do here is let me get up here, and first thing I'm going to do is go down to my projects folder, and I'm going to right click on projects folder and go to new and new folder. I'm going to start a folder for this project, and it's going to be called D0604. D for Doe, it's John Doe, and John Jane Doe, I guess. And very similar to our previous job code. But today's June 4th, so that's why I'm naming this project D0614. So what we're going to do initially is assume that we've been able to obtain drawings of the site, the garage plan, and so on and so forth. Sometimes those don't exist. A lot of times people just throw their blueprints away when the project's done. But it's always nice when you can get them, because you can save a whole lot of time in measure-ups and that sort of thing. But we're going to assume that these folks actually kept their plans. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and essentially just grab these two plans, both our initial W1 site plan and the A2 plan, and just select both of those, hold down Control and select them both, and I'm going to right click and drop them into our new project D0604 and copy there. So that way I can access these drawings on the fly. So now those, as you can see, those are in our D0604 folder. So now we have those drawings, and we're going to just take a quick look at them. First is a site plan, and we can look at the site plan, and I'm going to zoom up or just zoom into this area here and just kind of take a look at the site. Now we're going to assume that we've obtained the site plan from the clients, and it could be on paper or it could be a digital PDF file or whatever. And we're going to be looking at this site with respect to Ashland's land use ordinance to make sure that we're complying with the requirements of the land use ordinance. Now, one of the first things I try to determine with clients is like I said, what their time frame is like. So we're going to assume that this time frame works for them and for me. And we're also going to, one of the other things we want to discuss usually at preliminary meetings is construction budget. So we're going to assume that we've already had the discussions about potential construction costs, design fees, and all that, and that the clients are okay with that. So those are two of the first things to get out of the way to make sure that we have green lights there. So what we're doing is we're wading into this project looking for red lights, the big ones that say, "Whoa, you can't do this." And if one of those pops up, we want to find that as early as possible so the clients don't incur too much in unnecessary or unusable design expense. So we want to let them off the hook early if it doesn't look like it's going to be able to go forward. So I'm looking at this site plan, and I know that our rear yard setback in the city of Ashland in this zone is 10 feet per story. And so from our rear property line, we are 26.70 feet. So that tells me that as far as the setbacks are concerned, we can look at our side yard setbacks also, which are 6 foot in the city of Ashland. We can look at this and say, well, yes, as far as setbacks are concerned, it looks like we're going to be okay. We're also going to want to take a look at solar setbacks in the city of Ashland. They can be somewhat restrictive sometimes, and because we're going to be going taller with our existing building, we need to make sure that I'm going to just go out here just a little bit. North is up in this particular drawing. We need to make sure that we're set back far enough from our north property line so that we're complying with the solar setback requirements. Essentially that we're not casting a shadow too far into the neighboring lot. And so we'll be addressing all of that shortly. It's nice that this site plan that we've obtained, it already has topography on it showing the contours, and so that's already pretty straightforward. It also shows the existing house and all of that, front yard setbacks, which don't really matter to us at this point, but still part of the information that's good to have. Also, on the site plan, there's all kinds of information like what the building areas are, what the site area is, allowable lot coverage and that sort of thing. We won't be changing much of the lot coverage because, again, we're going to be placing a structure, hopefully, above this existing garage, but we will need to access it with a stair. So what that means is that we're going to incur a little additional lot coverage, but it's not going to be a whole lot. And as you can see right now, with the garage on it, we are allowed allowable impervious surface area of 50%, and at this point in time, we only have 38.87%. So we have a substantial amount of coverage that we can actually add to this. So that means that we'll probably be okay as far as lot coverage, as far as the site itself is concerned. But again, we still need to check the solar setback requirements to make sure we're in compliance there. The fact that we're 26.60 feet away from our north property line gives me a great deal of hope that we'll be okay there, but we still have to check it out because there's actually a number of things that we'll want to be taking a look at. So I'm going to close this PDF for the time being. It also has the elevation drawings on it. You can see those. So we have a lot of initial information to start with. Now, sometimes you can't get plans of the existing lot and site and existing buildings and all of that. So in that case, you're essentially starting from scratch, and it requires a measure up on the site. But there's a lot of information that you can acquire from the city and the county that'll get you kind of far down range, just like we did with the initial site plan when we imported the city imagery in order to overlay our topography and that sort of thing. So I'm going to close this one and then open up the A2, because the A2 sheet has a whole lot of our structural information. And one of the things that we're going to be evaluating is whether or not we can actually place a structure above this. I mean, you can almost always do something, but without getting crazy with a whole bunch of engineering and everything. So things that we're going to be looking at as far as feasibility structurally is we have this huge garage door header. It's a 16-foot garage door, and we need to make sure that because we're going to be adding floor loads if we go up above, so we want to make sure that this garage door header, its trimmers, columns essentially, and footings can accommodate all of that. Now, one of the things that we're looking at here initially is that, and when we zoom up on the foundation plan here and go to note 46 to see what our footing size is. And so we'll go over to note 46, and there's 16-inch concrete monolithic footing. So that means that should accommodate an upper floor. Typically, even on a single floor project, I designed footings to accommodate an additional floor, and the reason is that it's just a little bit extra concrete, and people add on above all the time, so it just makes life easier for everybody involved. And so that's one of the reasons that I typically do that. It just also ends up being a stronger structure. So on this is our sheet A2, and you can see that we have the floor plan, foundation plan, roof framing, which will be nuking those trusses, and our wall bracing plan, and so on and so forth. So we'll be analyzing all of this along the way to evaluate this project. So what we know so far is that our time schedule for design is going to work with the clients. We know that their construction budget will likely accommodate the project. We know that as far as the site plan is concerned, that we're okay with side yard, rear yard, and front yard setbacks and all of that. We need to make sure that we're okay to put an ARU, an accessory residential unit, on this site. But with this zoning, I'm sure that the city would probably allow it. But again, one of the crucial things that we need to deal with early on are the solar setback requirements. So that's one of the things that we'll want to determine, and we'll determine that on our next lesson. But for right now, this is just basically an introduction to this project. We've established our project job code as D0604, and we've set up our initial folder that we're going to place information in, and this project is going forward at this point in time. So we'll see how it goes as we go through our process of looking for red lights or something that might jump up at us and stop the project. So our next task will be to look at the land use ordinance to make sure that the accessory residential unit, or ARU, is allowed in this zone, and see if there's any potential problems there, and then we'll want to make sure that we're okay solar setback wise. So it's a wading in process. We just wade into the water little by little, making sure that we're okay all along the way. So that concludes sort of the preliminary information on this new project of D0604, and that concludes Dcad lesson 18A, project evaluation.